Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of Lost in Translation. I'm May.
And I'm Jay.
This week we watched Silent Waymon at the Bottom of the Sea
Or Under Pressure.
and The Dangerous Game, Pinocchiomon.
Or Playing Games.
The first episode that we're watching this week is called Under Pressure, or in the Japanese version, it's Silent Whammon at the Bottom of the Sea. What do you think this episode's about?
I'm gonna say it's about. I mean, the kids are inside Waymont. If I'd only seen English, I would not know. This would have been very confusing. But I saw the Japanese version, so the kids all got swallowed by Waymont as like a mode of defense. My guess is that they're all inside the whale, and okay, it's going to be not a filler episode so much, but they're not going to fight Metal Siegramon. They're going to fight like his weird putty minions. Because he's the only one who's mentioned so far. He's got like a big team, and this sounds like under pressure means it's going to be like fairly deep underwater because they're fleeing. So they're going to get attacked by I don't know some huge weirdos under the water.
What do you think they'll look like?
Okay, so this is a bit unfair because
Well, you know Digimon, just strap metal onto sea slugs or something.
uh, sea slugs isn't wrong. What metal would you strap onto them? It'd be like an Iron Man suit or like, wait,
Well, what kind of
scuba gear?
scuba gear? That'd be interesting.
Sure. I want it to be snorkels, but that would make less sense. Yeah, so I guess crappy putties with scuba gear are going to attack them when they're in a whale, which is a sentence that I wish I could say about about other shows because that sounds interesting.
And what level do you think they'll be? Do you think they'll be child,
Okay,
adult, perfect,
I
ultimate?
think they're going to be adults because that's what putties would be. But
Well,
we've already,
Scorpionmon was a perfect.
yeah, but there's only going to be one of him, and I'm thinking there's going to be like a huge like horde of them. Uh, like there's gonna be tons of them, and they're gonna be adults. And I'm gonna ask you questions like, "Wait, how don't you just easily kill them all if Gardevoir can fight perfects?" Blah blah blah. Not perfects. Was it? Is is perfect the highest or the second highest?
Perfect is the second highest. It goes
Yeah, that makes
child,
sense.
adult, perfect, ultimate.
It makes sense that perfect being without flaw is not the strongest. Anyway,
Well, ultimate is ultimate.
sure, but it's
What would you prefer,
that
ultimate
that
mega?
implies that ultimate isn't perfect. It has flaws.
Yeah, but then it goes ultimate mega instead of perfect ultimate.
That's fine. Yeah, that also doesn't make much sense. In fact, that makes less. They both don't make sense, but we've been over this. Um, yeah. And what was the? Yeah, I think that's all the information I can get.
And so, do you think it'll be a good episode? What rating would you give it out of 10?
5.
So, you think it's going to be a
I think
barely tolerable
I
episode?
think that it could save itself if the kids have like interesting moments when they're stuck in the whale, but I think that it's going to get bogged down in tons of fighting with the putties.
So, you don't think Metal Siegramon will fight the children at all in this
I don't think
episode, or
so.
do you think he'll just be giving orders to the minions?
I think the minions will act under orders because like if the whale eating them and going underwater didn't keep Metal Siegramon off, it would never have done it to begin with. So obviously that plan works. So it has to do with the rest of the what was it, the deep sea family? Is that what
The deep savers.
yeah, the deep savers. That sounds like the sort of thing you'd find underwater. That's what I'm saying. That's where I brought that from, like the putties.
So, do you think this is the same Waymon we've seen before, or do you think it's an evil Waymon who's just trying to fight them?
It's very obviously the same one. Because A, if you find a Digimon you've already met, that the same one you met before in the same type, it's going to be the same one you met before because of Trumon. You can just stumble upon people you know. But more to the point, it's near File Island. Um, we've never seen multiple of them, and also it talked to them at the end of the Japanese episode.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
that's right.
going to protect you, so it's not a twist.
What a twist. But it'd be interesting if, he's the Black Gears came back and he decided to attack them.
I think that would beg more questions than it answered.
So the next episode that we're going to be watching is called Playing Games or The Dangerous Game, Pinocchiomon.
You know, okay, actually, that's really interesting because it'd be really weird for them to move on to Pinocchimon slash Puppetmon without having killed Metal Seedramon first. I'm sticking with my opinion, but
You never
wow,
know.
that's
He
really
might have
weird.
escaped, or he might have been rescued by Puppetmon slash Pinocchimon.
When you're trying to lie to me, you should lie better.
Maybe I'm not. Maybe he died. Maybe he didn't.
Wait, who was being rescued?
What do you mean? I'm just saying
You just said someone was rescued by Puppetmon. I'm not saying that you were something that they were, but you were conjecturing that they might be. Who was the they?
that Metal Seedramon, like how he's not mentioned in the this episode. Maybe that's why. Maybe I don't
I,
know.
I think
Maybe that he escaped. Maybe he's
likelihood
just not
is
relevant.
likelihood is that like Waymon gets them up on the shore and they're like, "Oh, we're safe now," and then they stumble onto Puppetmon for no reason.
Maybe. Do you think that's what's happened?
Yes, that's why I'm having
All
this
right.
segment with you.
So you think they got away from the Deep Saver army?
Yes, because they're the protagonists, and they always do.
All right. So
Did you know that protagonists always win? Because I do.
always, definitely. Except when they don't, like in Enter the Dark Masters.
Yeah, but I mean that's just a setup for them winning later.
So what do you think the dangerous game is? Do you think it's a reference to the most dangerous game, or do you think it's just a coincidence?
Um, I want to believe that the show is clever enough to make that reference, but I don't think it is. So instead, I think it's just like not so much a game show, but a game like Arena in which they have to fight him. And because he's got these weird like puppet controlly powers, there's probably like rules to it. That could be entertaining, but I don't know. It's fairly broad and hard to pin down from the titles alone.
So do you think anything else happens in this episode? Do you think it's just Puppetmon playing with them, or
Well, they have to fight him, and then if the Metal Suitramon episode is anything to go by, they have to lose, and then have to be rescued by someone from their past, which has now happened twice.
who do you think they'll be rescued by?
Uh, I guess Leomon hasn't been shown to be dead.
I'm pretty sure Leomon died.
Did he?
Yeah, he's Leomon. He's meant to die all the time.
No, he dies in like season 3.
He dies in a lot of seasons.
But has he died in this season already?
I don't know. I think he
Okay,
has.
did we see him die at any point?
It's not obvious if he died or not. It's
Well,
left up. It's sort of left up in the air.
the kids just asked after him recently, but I guess that was English, so it's
Yeah,
hard
that
to
was in the
tell.
English version.
I
He's saying,
guess
"Do you know where Leomon is?"
Kentaramon could still be around. Meramon could still be around. They'd all be really stupid if they were, but I wouldn't be shocked.
I like Meramon. I hope Meramon comes back.
Yeah, I hope that man who was completely made of fire with his mouth stitched shut, aka the world's greatest hero, who totally looks trustworthy, is still around to help the kids and hug
Kentaramon's
them
good too.
close to his flame body.
So, do you think there'll be any evolutions in it in this episode, or
No, we've already been over this. There's no new evolutions
no?
if
I mean, like in general. Do you think that
I think they'll have 2 minutes of them like they have in every other episode.
2 minutes of evolutions?
No, not a full 2 minutes. They're not gonna do that again. That was like the full 3 minutes of evolution was because they had every evolution of every character of every permutation of it. But yeah, there will be some evolutions in this because I would struggle to imagine an episode after evolutions were introduced. No, well, they were introduced episode 1. I think there's an evolution in every episode. I don't think there's a miss.
Yeah, there should be an evolution every episode because then it wouldn't be about monsters fighting.
And I wish it wasn't.
Have we had an episode where no one evolved?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. No, I've got it. I'm
What?
pretty sure that there's no evolution when TK's in the baby place.
Yeah, Digibaby Boom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is one there.
yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he's about to.
But that's only in the context of him having the one Digimon that didn't evolve
Mm.
and then being around tons of babies.
Oh, no, the baby evolved.
So it did.
But no, evolution scene. No.
Yeah. However, to answer your question of
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
will there be evolutions, the answer is and will always be yes.
But do you think 2 minutes of evolutions?
No, I don't think that.
So, what do you think Puppetmon attacks with?
His hammer, we already saw it.
Only his hammer?
He attacks with his hammer and he attacks by attaching strings to you.
Oh yeah, we have seen it. That right? That's right.
Dude, I watched the episode twice, I remember.
Yeah, I forgot that we already were introduced to these
We were
characters.
introduced to all of them.
Yeah,
I'm actually really surprised that Puppetmon's gonna be the second one that they fight.
really?
Yeah. Well, because the order they were introduced was Metal Seedramon, Mech Dragony thing, and then
Puppetmon and then Piedmon.
then Joker.
Yeah.
So it seems really weird that they would introduce this order and then not use it.
So do you think Metal Seedramon will be in this episode at all?
In the recap at the beginning,
So you don't think like he'll come in to say, Puppetmon, where are the children?
I did not think that. No, I'm
Okay.
beginning to, but I don't think so. No,
Okay.
I think that just thematically it wouldn't make sense.
So do you think we'll see any new Digimon in this episode? Think we'll see any Wind Guardians, Leviosa?
What? Wind Guardians?
Yeah, there's Wind Guardian.
What are those?
I already told you they're like they're flying ones or they live in like plants and fields and stuff.
Uh, yeah, we'll probably see a new Digimon. It'll be crappy and be part of the game.
What do you think he'll look like?
I have no idea. That is an impossible question.
Well, he'll be a Wind Guardian presumably.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would have called Metal Scorpion. Neither would I have called some of the other
Well,
things.
shellfish with knives. I don't know. That's pretty.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would have called that. I already called putties with scuba gear. Let's stick with that.
Well, you never like. Did you do? Are you really sure they'll have scuba gear?
No, I'm not, but at least like I feel more confident about that one because of the context of the episode than I am about this one,
Okay.
in which it's a game. I'm thinking like a Mario Party board, and now I'm just like, well, there's Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Waluigi, and they're the worst Digimon ever.
Mario Mon. So, what do you think this? Do you think this would be a good episode? What do you think you'll rate it?
God, this is so impossible because it's so contingent on like what the game is, but I think Puppetmon is more interesting. I think he's the second most interesting of all the bad guys.
Who's the first?
The
Oh
boss,
yeah.
obviously. He's got like showmanship and everything. He's actually fairly entertaining.
Mm,
I don't know, 6, 5.5, something like that. Could be worse.
could be worse. All right. So I guess we'll just have to watch the episodes to find out.
Right.
Fantastic.
And then we're about to, or I guess I'll do it in a couple days.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow and Thursday.
I have exams coming up. Everyone appreciate me for putting the time into this show despite that.
Yeah, well, you're smart.
Appreciate me.
And on to Postmon Pat. Jay, will you start us with our reading our Gmail emails?
Sure. So our first one is from Stephen Patamon. They open by saying that they accept their new nickname willingly, which is great because they didn't have a choice. And then they said they were a new listener. They listened to episode 21 first, and they're listening from the start, which makes sense. I mean, our later stuff, I think we develop a bit, which is nice, but it's a chronological show that covers the series. It really should be taken from the start. They say that they're really surprised at just how great the podcast is, and for that we're very appreciative. And talk about the interaction between us is great, and how they haven't watched anything but the English dub, and that it's interesting to hear the differences. And that's I guess the raison d'être of the show. They say
French.
in regards to the latest episode, I think they have an interesting theory as to why Tailmon is indifferent to Wizardmon slash Plot Device's death. That Wizardmon isn't around anymore to constantly remind her that they were best friends or that they spent all that time together, so she completely forgets that he existed. And that she didn't get involved in the fight against Shellmon because none of the kids were saying, hey, we're friends. You need to get into this fight and protect us because we have a history together. If she's not being told it, she doesn't remember. As to prophecies, he's of the opinion that all prophecies everywhere are terrible. And I'm not sure I agree. I think prophecies in fiction can be used very interestingly and be very complex. And I think a very good and very mainstream example is the one in Harry Potter, which is the crux of the story. It makes everything go, and you totally understand why people take the actions that they do, and it's not so direct and obvious that you can predict the whole thing directly. Like there's always ambiguity, and I think that's the key to a prophecy is ambiguity that you can look back on and say, "Oh, that's what that is." Because I think with the prophecy in Digimon, it was like, I just know what's going to happen. Why didn't you just say it straight up? At a point, prophecy should just be like, you should never look at a prophecy and say, you could have told me this in plain English and it would have been the same. Then they talked about Edamon, who benefited from the English dub, which is true to an extent, at least from an entertainment value, that he's a local warlord who saw an opportunity after a bunch of kids murdered the devil to take over and be the king of rock and the digital world. Although I'm not so sure that's the case. I think the argument could be made that he ruled like Server, and it's just a different place. So I don't think he would have necessarily had eyes on the devil. They don't have to necessarily be in cahoots because they had, I would say, not similar power level, but at least it wasn't the disgustingly wide gap it is between Devimon, who can be beaten by Angemon, and like four ultimate crazy level Mega, whatever they are, four per, not
Yep.
perfect, ultimate, yeah, I think four
Yeah,
ultimate
it
level.
goes. Yeah.
I never remember. So yeah, the Dark Masters is a very particular group where you say that is so disgustingly more powerful than every other group. There's no way that people wouldn't have known that was going on. And Myotismon is kind of a level above that as well. So you think, and he's on the same area as Edamon, so that's kind of why you think that interaction. The step from Devimon to Edamon made sense. It made a lot of sense, and that was fine. I never questioned that one. Um, then talk about Bakumon, how it was very how the US is weird with religion, so they couldn't use sutras, and that would have been replaced with Latin incantations if they weren't quite so strange. But they kept Japan, so you shouldn't westernize everything. And I think the only reason they did keep Japan after the whole heightened view terrorist deal is because you have to see it on a map sometime. Like they look at Japan on a map, and you can't change the animation. You can't have the kids be like, "Yeah, look at North America. We're from Washington, D.C."
Hmm.
Odaiba in Washington D.C. Like you can't pretend at that point. So they're like, okay, well we have to concede it, and that's what the show. The show in English is constantly struggling with the animation, where they say, we don't want to show this stuff. How can we write around the animation to make it work? In the second episode today, it's like that constantly, and when it comes to violence, they cut it out, and that happens a lot today as well.
And scratching poison oak
Oh,
instead of, reloading a gun.
that was great. Um, but a lot of the time, when an animation is key to the show and they can't get rid of it, like the beginning of episode two is a good example of this. They change the writing so that it really softens it, or or you get weird situations like Mimi's brother, where they just make stuff up and then they regret it later. So it's about Telemon staying an adult. Um, though it is about trauma, but as Jay said, it's a tricky thing to argue because the show only goes so far in exploring this. What I'm saying is we needed more Wizardmon to explain everything because he had so much potential as a plot device. Um, they asked what I think about Primary Village as a concept, like philosophically, and it's a very difficult question because obviously it really cheapens life and death in a way that I think episode two discusses a little bit in English, in that why would death ever concern you if you know you're about to be reborn? I think we've discussed this before, where if you die, you become a baby with no memory, unless you're one of the digital, like the chosen kids ones. But that obviously begs the question of like, why would you call it being reborn at all if you have no memories? Um, So if they have no memories, it's essentially a recycling center. But I guess the big problem is that is this the only primary village in the digital world? Because you'd imagine there's so many more Digimon than there are babies here. Well, there.
I'm not really sure if another primary village is shown in this season, but I know in other seasons we do see their version of primary village. Sometimes it's called like a daycare, sometimes it's different. It's got different owners. Like in one season, Togemon is the one who looks after them. So it's definitely in different universes, but I'm not sure if it's on different continents.
Oh,
Also, did you combine
I moved into
Edgar?
Edgar's. I just caught
Yeah,
that
because I just realized like this sounds like you're reading Edgar's email and
because
you've
in the place you've copied them out, there's no break. It just flows right in. There's
That's
the
why I wanted us to stick to Evernote because it's good formatting.
I don't use Evernote. I
So
might I
so
might
yeah,
have to.
Edgar. When Jay started talking about prophecies, that was Edgar's. Stephen Padamon's was about being a new listener, and then talking about Wizardmon being a plot device.
I'm sorry. I will get it right next time. And now I will actively signpost that we're speaking about John Summers' letter. Um,
Oh, but, no, but you're forgetting the bits about how Edgar linked us the what's the medieval depictions
wait,
of
wait.
Satan. But yes, so there's like a and it's got a crotch monster, and I'll link that in the show notes. But they're a bit creepy. It's medieval art, so it's a little bit horrifying in a
Like
way.
those muscle babies.
Yeah, and like the he's eating a person, and his crotch is also eating a person.
Basically, the idea is that Myodasmon is not actually a vampire. He's the devil.
Yeah, or maybe he's well, his name is Vam Demon, so it's like vampire demon. So
Yeah, let's all assume that the Mon part is always relevant to their names.
what about the DE part? Vampire doesn't have a DE part.
I guess. But we know that as a demon that would be Devi.
Yeah, but demon
But like
Vam Demon.
yeah, you also spell dragon Draymon.
Yeah.
That's how you spell it. That's the same word.
Yeah, with the Dramon killer.
Which he never uses.
Yeah, he does.
No, he
It's on
doesn't.
his arm. He
No,
literally goes through Metal Sea Dramon
no,
with his arm.
but they always yell out the moves they're gonna use, and he runs in. He's like Brave Shield. It's like
Yeah,
use
but
the
it's
Draymon killer. You were
no,
told to.
his attack's not called the Dramon killer. That's
Why?
just the
Why
piece of
wouldn't
that's
it?
just a
It's the
weapon.
weapon he's using.
Yeah, but it's not the name of the attack.
But Brave Shield is
Yeah, Metal Wolf Claws are an ice beam.
only in English though.
It's still a breath attack.
Yeah, but only in English.
Yeah,
Brave
but not
Shield
necessarily.
wasn't English. Brave Shield was the Japanese.
Yeah, but Dramon Kill is the name of the weapon. It's also made out of Chrome Digizoid,
That's the worst thing ever.
which I
What is
can't believe
that?
was in both versions.
I
I
can't
have no
believe that
idea.
existed in the first place.
Yeah, I was watching the Japanese version, like that's a bit like an English dub
Isn't that
thing.
just Chrome?
Yeah, just say Chrome, not Chrome Digizoid. You don't have
That's
to
because
invent a metal.
Chrome isn't that strong. Anyway, so I will actively signpost
Yep.
John Summers' letter. That there is an explanation as to why the Dark Masters didn't appear earlier. Apparently, in the novels, they were sealing away the four holy beasts, which there's a whole detailed thing here, but I don't know what those are. And I'm gonna be totally honest with you here. It is the duty of a show to make these things clear because a TV show, especially one 50 episodes long, has a duty to its audience to give them all the information that they need. And so if I'm asking weird like questions, obvious questions, like where were these like disgustingly powerful group of Digimon? And the answer is you needed to read the books.
Well,
That's called bad storytelling.
the novels came out a few years after, I believe, and they fix a lot of things that was wrong with the series. I haven't read them, but translations do exist, and I do want to get around to reading the translations that are out there because, apparently it fills in a lot of holes.
Are the Holy Beasts good guys?
We meet them
Do we? Okay.
eventually.
All right. And and by the time they were finished, the Chosen Children returned to the real world, to battle Vandemon. Returned to the real world, not from. Okay, that's confusing. Um, why Vandemon and Edamon just didn't travel to Fire Island and kill the Chosen Children? The Chosen Children were only on Fire Island for about a week, so they may not have immediately known that they were in the digital world at the same time. Although, that said, there's no indication of when Vandemon figured out that they even existed. I mean, he knew about the prophecy and everything, but how did he find them in the first place? Did he just have Demi Devimon kind of flapping around and hoping to stumble upon them?
Maybe.
Uh,
Um,
because at least I think Edamon had like they ran into his like minions, so he
yep.
could have figured it out. And Devimon had control of like a whole island, and he had minions running into them all the time. So it makes sense.
And he had the black gears.
Yeah. So
Not really, he didn't really have minions so much as like Ogamon and
anyone who was black-eared is
yeah,
considered a
black
minion, and there's
gears.
tons of those. So, and the same novel also gives Myotismon's excuse. He was more concerned with invading the real world to take out the eighth child, who was prophesied to defeat him instead of everyone else. Taking out the other seven would have been a bonus, but not something to go out of your way for. And I've spoken about this for at least an hour over the different shows we've done, but the killing the other seven is a bonus is meaningless because if you kill the other seven, it would have done the same job as killing the eighth, and you would never have had to invade the real world and put
No,
yourself in
I
a
see
position of
what he
weakness.
means. No, I see what he
No, I
means.
get that, but and we went over this in our big debate. It requires you to be so focused on your goal that you pretty much intentionally make mistakes.
But why
Because
bother
the
kill all of them when you can just kill one?
well, if you go to the real world, you go into a position where you have to drink blood, and that depowers you, apparently. Because we've been over this one as well. He doesn't have to drink blood in the digital world, or if he does, it's super easy.
Mm.
And second, he's constantly in positions to easily kill the kids in the digital world when they're not, especially TK, who he knows is in the prophecy.
I
Oh my
think the
God.
bad guys just have a tendency to like underestimate the power of the children.
Sometimes I think that the best villains in the show, which as the ones we've seen so far are Edamon and the two Dark Masters we've seen so far, one of which we'll discuss today. They all have reasons to act the way they do. In fact, Edamon didn't underestimate them because he knew how powerful. The thing is, every bad guy who is good knows how powerful they are and reasons out, I can win because of this evidence I've been given. And it all makes perfect sense to them, and you can understand where they're coming from. Edamon goes, the first time I met them, all they guys evolved, and I just de-evolved them with my guitar. And I kicked the crap out of them. And then they ran away, and I couldn't catch them because they're hard to find.
Hmm.
So he didn't underestimate them. He knew exactly how strong they were, and he came after them. Devimon didn't know, but at least he kind of tried. He,
He
but,
tried his hardest. He
but,
gets a gold star.
but he wasn't aware of what they're capable of, so it kind of made sense for him to get surprised. Everyone else, like Vandermon, is the biggest problem example where he's been given information where he will not die unless this circumstance arises.
Hmm.
Like prophecies are this weird double-edged thing, especially self-fulfilling ones, where you go, and a good self-fulfilling prophecy is very hard to do because what it's meant to do is you put yourself in a position where the prophecy fulfills itself, which is what happened. He goes to the real world and he finds the kid, but in doing so, he gives the other kids a portal into the real world to reunite them so that both angels can be together and fire the arrows and do all the stuff. So he was key to that prophecy being coming to fruition. But the prophecy specifically says only when this happens, like, will the miracle happen and he'll be defeated. But if he never goes to the real world, the kids never will, the angels will never get together, and he won't lose. The prophecy says if you don't do this, you won't lose.
Yeah, but I think he wanted to rule, like he wanted, I think the in the Japanese version, he wanted to plunge the real world into darkness and then combine the two worlds and be the king of the digital world. And he could only do that by going to the real world and killing the eighth child.
I
He needed to be slaughtered by Angel Woman to rise again and be the undead king.
I think, I mean, he doesn't know that part. The Undead King thing maybe, but obviously if you get to that part of the prophecy, you're going to screw up the next part. I think if your ultimate goal is to rule the real world, which we've established that he can do without evolving, because he was more successful before evolving than afterwards.
Yeah, he lasted more than one episode.
So I think if he had been not quite so impatient and acting like a smart person, killed all the kids in the digital world where he's powerful, then go to the real world where this one child that's left has no chance of stopping him, The difference is, yes, it takes slightly more effort, but one is a game of inevitabilities where you easily win in the long campaign, and the other one is huge risk where you will probably lose because the prophecy said you would. And you're going to walk into the prophecy one rather than doing the smart thing. And I've said this enough times. If a villain is an idiot, you can't respect him. And Myoto's Manuel, I think the reason that people like him, I'm going to continue with the letter. Um, uh, so taking out, no, we were about that part. Um, the Vandermon discussion led, as John Summers continues, the Vandermon discussion led me to wonder why Vandermon is rated so high among the fan base. Fans say that Vandermont's introduction and arc is when the show was considered to have improved in quality. He was challenging and dangerous foe, and on the higher end of the villain scale. However, despite what some fans might think, Vandermont is not the most impressive foe the Chosen Children have ever fought. He may be the most popular, but that does not necessarily equal ultimate foe status. And I agree. And I think the reason for that is that the story picks up around him. I think Vandermont's kind of in a right place, right time. His design isn't bad. And while he makes all the worst decisions possible, the kid's story at the time that he is introduced is much more interesting. You know, they're returning to the real world, Ty's figuring out his whole thing, Kari's introduced. Uh, it stops being a battle a week. It is a battle a week, but it stops just being about here's a new Digimon, here's a new evolution, here's a new battle, and a plot begins to evolve. And you've got a terrible villain in the meantime, but he looked menacing and he put a bunch of women in the hospital. The fact that he didn't kill them is really confusing because he's willing to kill his minions, but not random women he picks up on the road. Obviously, murder isn't past his like wheelhouse. But anyway, and they go on to say that Paimon is just as cruel as he was. However, he does not have as much screen time due to there being three main villains being in the arc. He does not have a servant who turns out to be one of the Chosen Children's partners, Angle the Playoff, and he also never murdered a character's beloved Wizardmon, which I would disagree with, but I'll discuss it later. The audience had more of a connection with Wizardmon than other Chosen Children allies. Again, same thing. So the gut punch of his death had more of an impact than the audience, thus making it more personal for us as well. This gives the false impression that Vandermon is the most sadistic of the adventure foes. Um, it was really more of a combination of factors I described previously. Uh, and that apparently I should be looking forward to the ultimate foe from Anode Tamers. I guess you'll figure that out having been playing them slowly.
Very slowly.
So, I actually have a big thing to say about this, about the gut punch, as it were, about feeling emotional about the death of an ally and how the show presents it. So, I'll talk about that in episode two because it's the beginning of episode two. It's very interesting, and the English undermines it disgustingly. But that kind of winds back into
Because
the.
of Ty, I think.
No, actually, it's not.
Really?
No. A, it's because of Matt, and B, it's because of Starter Village. But I'll discuss it at the time. I think it's quite interesting. So that's all the Gmail.
Yep. So on to Tumblr, where we have our first Anonymon, who said that they really liked these episodes and agreed with most of our comments.
Thank you.
I just have to say that Mimi not wanting to fight wasn't regressing, but was developing. We see when her crest activates that she can't stand seeing her parents getting hurt, and the purity to herself is the trigger that helps to question whether they should fight. It's great that a show about fighting, there is one kid that doesn't like violence, and concluding that there is no point to it. And that's a good point. Like, I do like how Mimi's sort of like, but I don't want to fight. Even though I think she accepts that she has to fight. And in the Japanese version, Taichi says, "Oh, we have to fight," and which Tai just says, "Oh, just get over it. It's a war, and there's going to be death."
I'm
Which is
actually
kind of like a harsher way of saying the same sort of thing.
I actually appreciate this interpretation, and I wouldn't have usually because obviously it triggered an evolution which goes into a Digimon fight. But her Digimon's first action is like the flower collar, which stopped the fight immediately,
Yeah.
which was very interesting. Although I think Lilymon does do a lot of fighting,
Yeah,
so
Lilymon's got an attack which is flower cannon. She fires like fire out of her flowers, so she's still strong.
yeah. Although like it's counterproductive to the message you're trying to send, where Mimi's big deal is pacifism through purity.
Mm.
I think if they committed to that harder, it would be much more appreciated. It's cool. It was cool at the time. Because again, I've purity slash sincerity is a really hard thing to get across in a moment as to why your guy would be evolving. But yeah, if you consider it like a distaste for fighting, that was interesting.
Mm. And the next Anonymon wants to hear our opinions on the Japanese track that we listened to throughout the episodes. Anonymon says that they noticed that I liked the Pinocchiomon. They want iTunes to decide to launch. I noticed that you liked Pinocchiomon's theme, and since the episodes are getting darker and more depressed, the Japanese music helps a lot to create the atmosphere compared to the dub. And I agree with that. I mean, I like the English dub soundtrack, but probably because I'm full of nostalgia for it. But a lot of the time, the sounds seem to be reused. In the Japanese version, at least, like every bad guy has like their character song, but they also have like a theme that plays in the background, and every situation seems to have a different background music to it. They do use character songs, like they do use Yamato's character song a lot because it's a harmonica noise. They've used Love Serenade a few times now, which I like.
Even in
But they've
car
also,
rides.
yeah, and yeah, both times in car rides. That's yeah, maybe it's on the radio. He's like a big star in the real world.
Elvis
But
is.
like like other ones that we've heard are like insert songs that I also like. That we've heard Seven, I believe, and I think other ones as well. We've heard the Taichi's character song, but I really do like how they're a bit more different, and there are more in the Japanese version, but I think the English version like is close to my heart because of nostalgia. What do you think about the soundtracks?
To be honest with you, I've never been the kind to like really focus on soundtracks. If you don't show me like an OST track list, I
I'm the
don't
same for
usually
others.
notice it.
Yep.
I don't usually notice it. I do like I do like Edamon's theme. I've noticed that one. I like Yamato's because it's a harmonica thing and it's really obvious. I don't know what Papamon sounds like. I couldn't recall it right now if you asked me. I'm sure I really liked it at the time, but I have no
Which one?
idea.
Sorry.
Puppetmon's theme? I have
Oh,
no idea
I
what it
don't think
sounds
we've heard
like.
it, but I'll send it to you. My dad really likes it.
Okay, well, like his yeah. The thing is, I don't really recognize the music by and
I
large.
have the Bad Guy album. It's full of all the bad guys' character songs. So, which I bought arguably just for Edamons, but it has like Pumpmon and Gotsumons, which is like this cute little rap, and it's got like Devimons, which is basically like I'm really evil. I'm so evil, man, man, I'm evil, which is that's basically Devimons.
Could I be any more evil?
And yeah, but I think Puppetmons is probably the best though,
All right.
because he giggles the whole time, and he's like, "I'm gonna get you and your brother, and then I'm gonna kill you." Those are the lyrics. Him just laughing about how he's going to kill the children.
Murder is hilarious.
And then the same Anonymon says, from now on, there'll be a lot of issues and drama between the children. So I believe Jay will appreciate that, even though most of the issues may seem contrived and forced. At least it focuses less on fighting.
I appreciate it in what's it called? I appreciate it in the Japanese. In English, I have problems with it because it
So they just
undermines
put stupid
itself.
and stupid jokes.
Yeah, that as well, but like it actually actively undermines itself, and I've got points to pick out with that.
Cool, we'll get to that later then. And then the last Anonymon says, we know that May likes Wind Guardians, but what family does Jay like the most so far? So there's Nature Spirits, Deep Savers, Nightmare Soldiers, Wind Guardians, or Metal Empire.
I'm literally going on the name Nightmare Soldiers. I don't know what any of them are, and
Gubbin wants a Nightmare Soldier.
Here's the thing. Do you know what makes no sense?
What?
The Wind Guardians, one of them's a mushroom.
Yeah, they're plants.
So like the the designation is fairly meaningless in my eyes.
So, like, if you think about a field, you think things are in the field, like there's nice wind, long grass.
No, when I hear Wind Guardians, I think of the sky.
It's kind of both.
It, but
So the
it
more like nature ones are in Nature Spirits. So
so
sometimes
but
I think there's a
what's
bit
the
of overlap
distinction
though.
between a Wind Guardian and a Nature Spirit when the mushroom is in it? Slash the bird with a bush as its tail, or the thing that's just a plant. There's
You
an
mean
evil
Floramon?
there's an evil plant looking thing, and you go, if this isn't a nature guardian, what is?
Okay, so we have to accept that the best Wind Guardian is Deramon because he is both one fashionable, two a bird, and also plant. So he's perfect for
That's the
Wind
one with the bow tie,
Guardians.
right?
Yeah, he's so cool. He's the
Yeah, it's
best.
cute, and it helps TK by being silent, which is
What
great.
level do you think Deramon is, by the way?
Deramon, which the bird? It's a champion
The bird.
probably.
Perfect.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
What?
he's super strong.
Where?
Yeah,
Where?
he's a little fluffy, cute, fat, powerful thing.
Very cute. You're not
Yeah.
wrong.
So you're going to go with Nightmare Soldiers? So that
It
has
just sounds
things like
awesome.
Pico Devimon, Gabumon, Candlemon. Uh,
Candlemon the strongest.
it's Candle.
So,
Wizardmon. It's
but
got like the cool looking Digimon, like Meramon and Skull Meramon. You know, the cool Digimon.
yeah, they're really cool.
Yep. Like I do like Nightmare Soldiers. Yeah, they're cool. They're basically the cool looking ones. Basically, Nature Spirits are like the kind of buggy, earthy ones, like Tentomon, and then there's Deep Savers, which are like they're water. Nightmare Soldiers, which are cool guys. Wind Guardians, which are plants and flying things and cool things with bow ties. And there's Metal Empire, which is basically like let's strap some metal onto it. Anyway, so onto With the Will, we have Fexmith, who said that you'd never guess the monkey should be Jay's catchphrase. And then
You'd
he
never
has,
guess the monkey.
yeah, it's your catchphrase now. Congratulations. So then he says, less of a question and more of a challenge. Can Jay make up a Digimon episode or an arc that would really please him? Something even more fun than Flower Power, yet under the constraints of it being an elaborate toy ad, it'd be better if he saw this with some time before actually recording, but a bigger challenge if he doesn't, I suppose. So I gave this to him yesterday.
I came up with what I personally think is incredible. It introduces an entire new toy line. It could be written over an entire season. It has moral ambiguity and comic relief, massive battles, and winning technically without fighting.
Wow. So
So,
tell us about it.
okay, so by and large, this is gonna sound like the fanfictioniest thing ever because it kind of is. So I started off with the idea of like how do you freshen the idea of this show and make it really interesting to watch? So step one, I was like, the kids have to fight their own Digimon. Or no, or have to fight by themselves without Digimon. I'm like, that's usable. Or the kids have to like trade their Digimon and work in teams with someone they're not really designated with, designed to complement them. And I thought both of those were interesting, but the reason I think I found them interesting was because something was wrong. Something was fundamentally flawed in the formula of the show, and I think that was what really drew me to the idea of your new bad guy, and you play with the idea of the world being digital. Your new bad guy is a glitch or like a legit computer virus, not like virus type. I mean, something actually infecting the world and it like consumes the energy of the digital world. It causes glitches, things are being ruined, whole sections of the world are being torn out, a la like Minecraft worlds where they're not loading in properly and they're just
You'd really like
gone.
Cross Wars Season 2.
And the important thing here is that it eats this data, it eats the digital world essentially to survive. It's hungry. It's not doing this because it's evil. It's doing this because it needs to. Which is a lot like Galactus, which is a fantastic villain who eats planets with it needs to have life on it, but he needs to survive. So you can play with the rules at this point. Once you've established that things are going wrong in the natural order of the digital world because glitches have been introduced, um, what first of all, what happens if you've you port people around. What if Ty now works with Palmon? He knows how to deal with a Digimon who shoots fireballs and nipple missiles. But what happens when they need to like grapple with something and they are flammable themselves? Mimi gets to work with Tentomon, things being shuffled around, kind of Devimon-esque when they split them. And she's dealing with these pretentious science shenanigans, especially in English. Um, your middle part there is them dealing with what's wrong with the world, and you could have your like Black Gear situation where you have glitched out um like Digimon. They look really weird. Something's wrong with them, very obviously, and that's kind of driven them mad. So again, they're not evil, they're victims. So you have to wonder, is killing them okay? Um, I skipped the middle really. I skipped straight to the final battle, which I think is my favorite part of this. And this is where first of all, you've already got your toy line there of like Glitchymon, of like take the ones you already know and just mess with them really hard. And here's my favorite bit, at least in my eyes, was that your final battle, the world's going completely insane. You've obviously started ruining the baseline level of what the digital world is made of. And obviously you can intercut this with like the real world of things stopping working, your Y2K, the toaster is trying to murder you situations. So there's tension. This is destroying the world as we know it. Um, and things get so nuts in the digital world, you end up with the Digimon as cartoonish versions of the kids
Hmm.
where Agumon has Tai's hair and goggles, Palmon has Mimi's hat, Tentomon is like on the laptop, Gomamon has glasses on, and the kids become the Digimon, and the Digimon are like take on the role of the kids, and they don't know anything is different. Like they think that that's the normal way of things, and they're telling their humans to go attack and to evolve, and there's a whole weird inverse evolution as the kids become these hyper distorted versions of themselves, and you get this whole crazy toy line of like these weird mixtures. And these would be the Kidgimon, um, I guess the chosen child Gmon, and you start asking yourself like, is it right to kill this glitch thing? It's not evil. It's definitely destructive, but it's not evil in any way. In fact, you could have whole episodes about how it completely regrets all of this. It doesn't, it understands the pain and suffering it's indirectly causing, but it's really hungry and it doesn't want to die by stopping eating. So, like, the kids would win, at least in my version of this, because they communicate. On one hand, they're fighting because they go, well, if we kill it, we'll win. We'll solve the problem. Or at least, the Digimon are directing this. And that would solve the problem. But it's really morally ambiguous. And they don't want to do that because it's murder. It's not like Devimon, who is just evil. This thing is not evil. It's actually very nice, but it can't stop. And so they're communicating with the parents in the real world. They're getting them involved. And like Tentamon Izzy is telling them how to set up like a computer server. And you're intercutting this massive Gurren Lagann final battle where they're throwing galaxies at each other and trying to fight the glitch at the same time as you're cutting to like these not subdued but like kind of frantic but down to earth just these adults running around trying to set up a server to transfer the glitch onto because it also recognizes the idea that the digital world takes place within pieces of technology that exist, and if you can put it onto this isolated server you can feed it like infinite useless data forever, which I guess begs its own interesting question of like, is there a new digital world in this isolated server that it's also ruining? But I would say like just as they're about to do the final blow, like the parents say, "Oh, we did it," and you transfer it over, and you could bloodlessly win without having to kill it. But you get your fight, you get your toys, you get an interesting exploration of character, both in how kids go about a situation where they're fighting people, or they're fighting an enemy that they don't need to, that they don't want to fight beyond necessity, uh, and trying to find a way to win without violence because they've never had to really do that before. They kind of do it today, which is super nice, but most of the time, if there's an enemy, they must kill it. They must punch it in the face until it stops moving, and that's how they always win. And how do you win without a weird evolution to make you win? And I think that's interesting. At least that's how I would go about it.
I really like that. Like some aspects are in different seasons of Digimon, but like on the most part, that's pretty good. I like it. Well done.
So I think it's a little bit fan fictiony, obviously, when you're like, oh yeah, well we'll switch the kids' places. It's an alternate universe where Agumon is the chosen child and Tai is the Digimon. But I think you could have so much fun in your last episode with War Taimon,
Huh.
and he's got strapping metal to him, and he starts shooting like missiles out of his goggles or whatever. And you could have a lot of fun with the designs as you like intercut the two together. And at the same time, you could have your like flower power like moments with the parents, and they're trying to figure out, and you get these really wonderful moments, which I'm not really sure you get in the other ones, which is the parents talking to each other and getting bouncing their impressions of like, oh God, our kids are so weird. I just think that'd be really fun.
And then on to Twitter, we have Anime Guy 01 who says also it makes sense why they fight the kids one at a time because of territory reasons, though they can fight all together. So yeah, that's the reasoning I would give if Jay asked why they were
Oh,
fighting
I
individually,
I
but that
totally
makes sense.
I totally recognize that. I said it last episode, and I said I
Yeah,
really appreciated the fact that they told us why they're going one by one. Well, they
yeah.
told us why Edramon went by himself. Then
Edgemon.
not Edramon, just Metal Seedramon. They look the same. They're the same
Look,
thing.
if Edgemon was a Dark Master, like they'd be dead. Like
What, because you
GG.
bolted wings to the thing that can already fly?
Yeah, but imagine how strong he would fly.
It would be the same. He doesn't even need to move to fly. Um, he reasoned it out with him, and then spoilers, he dies. And I only say spoilers because at the beginning of the English one, he dies. Um, oh no, like spoilers, he dies. Yeah, we're going over this episode this time. Um,
Yeah.
so
He dies at the beginning of the playing games
yeah,
in
but he
the
also
English
dies at
version.
the end of the first Japanese episode
Yep.
today. So then Puppetmon gets up and goes, "Well, it's my turn," and goes by himself.
And then he learns he has no friends.
Which is like that is both great, but also doesn't he have the Dark Masters? Aren't they his friends?
I think they're more his
Yeah, they're more
colleagues.
associates.
Like,
Um,
I think they just paid, do you want to rule the digital world?
you'd
Sure.
really
I
think that
don't think
Piedmon
we can.
he would think Piedmon is his friend. That makes so much sense for why he's there. To be like, there's a jester. He's my friend. He plays games. I get that. He juggles. It's cool. They could have gone that way with it, but it's fine. I like the way they did it in the episode. But while during the episode, I could totally say I understand why he did this alone. When he introduces the fact he's going out alone, it's really stupid. It's like, hey, one of the Dark Masters just got murdered by these kids. I'm going to fight them alone. Not, hey, two guys who are equally as strong, come with me. I'm going to fight them alone after my colleague just died.
Hmm.
And the kids didn't cheat or anything. The kids didn't pull out some one time use thing and you're like, oh, well, they don't have that again, and you go fight them. The kids are, if not as powerful, sorry, if not stronger, at least as powerful as they were when they killed this guy. Unless you think you're miles stronger than him, which you don't because you're colleagues, then why go alone? And again, it explains it, but the introduction that he's going alone is really weird because there's no territorialism with him because it's in the same territory.
On to I Will Show You Digiworld. This was suggested by both Fexmef and Edgar. So I've linked it to Jay and he will click it.
Oh,
He might have seen this before though.
I gotta click it now. What is this? I have not. Oh no, I think I have. Yeah.
Yep.
So you make a Pokemon by taking a real life creature and kind of adjusting it and still retaining the recognizable real life basis and making it have a fantasy appeal, which is great. The example is an axolotl into a Mudkip, I think. How to make a Digimon? You take a real life creature and you just strap missiles and bombs and knives to it until there's no more room,
Yep.
which is fairly accurate. I mean, look, I think the best example is Metal Garurumon, which is literally take and Metal Greymon. Those are the best examples. I think that's where this stereotype for them comes from,
Yep.
which is, hey, take the thing, strap metal to it. Now it's stronger. Um, War Greymon is such a weird step up from that because you are doing that. You're putting more metal onto it, but it's a different creature now.
He's also more of a knight, I think. He's more like he's in armor rather than is just has metal and guns and missiles and stuff attached to him.
Yeah. Um, and I guess like Zudomon doesn't, Lilymon doesn't.
Pseudomon has some metal, doesn't
No,
he?
he has a hammer.
Yeah, that's metal.
No, you're not strapping it to him though. The other one has he
Angemon has metal.
Angemon has metal, but it's not like
Nipples.
guns and stuff. Most of the kids Digimon actually don't do that.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's the fact that it does happen that like people make fun of because it's
yeah,
basically grab this animal, put metal on. There you go.
yeah, that's how you create a Digimon generally. Like, and just weird like whatever's in the black leather straps is they like to put on a lot of stuff for no
Yeah,
reason.
to make sure you know it's evil, like the
Oh yeah,
face covering mask
like
on the angels.
Pixiemon.
Oh,
Pixiemon has
right.
it too. That's why
Yeah,
when I first saw him, I thought that he'd betray the kids.
I would have liked that. I think that would have been really good. Like, hey, is he an evil Digimon? No, he's a good Digimon, but still portrays him anyway.
Well, that's a thing that the show, I don't think, it hasn't tried very hard with. It did it once, which I think is with but it was with the babies, where like a bad guy says, I'm nice. I'm I'm gonna hang out with you, I'm gonna help you, and then kills them. Demi Lovato doesn't really count because he told Patamon I'm evil, but TK will never believe you because he has no reason to trust you, Digimon he's hung out with for months. He'll
Your
trust me,
best friend of
Digimon he's met
Digimon.
for a day.
Mm.
So, but I've never like, there's no big bad guy that's come out there and been like, I will protect you, I'll hang out with you, like Leomon, and then when they're sleeping, just stab them in the neck.
Yeah, but that's not in the script.
No, it's not in the script, but it really should be.
So if you want to like leave us any messages or talk to us at all, we have a Gmail. So that's lostintranslationmon@gmail.com. We have Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook. We have a discussion thread on With the Will. You can comment on this episode or you can message us on SoundCloud. And would really appreciate it if you reviewed us on iTunes and Stitcher. That'd be good to get us ratings and stuff. Yay. So on to episode 42, which starts with Metal Seigramon talking to some Hangyomon, which is a perfect level diver Digimon. So I guess Jay was right in Obnoxious Synopsis where he said strap scuba
Scuba
gear.
gear.
But you
Scuba
did
gear.
say that you think that'd be adult level.
Scuba gear. It's like, I guess perfect is what you need to be even vaguely a threat, as Shalmon showed us. But at the same time, it seemed like the thing to guess.
Yeah, well, you got it right. Like,
But also,
they're wearing scuba gear.
this is not where the episode starts. The episode starts in English,
Oh,
when they're
yeah.
still running away. In weirdly, like, the English has played around with where the episode ends a few times, especially recently.
Oh, yeah.
And
Like, it's this episode, and that they move some clips around in the next episode as well. But it's less obvious. Like, it's not like to a different episode.
actually, no, it is. Especially because this episode ends.
No. I mean this. Sorry, I mean the end of next episode.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah,
the end of next episode. Like has a like Matt goes off, and then stuff happens instead of the other way
yeah.
around.
We'll cover it then.
Yep. So Metal Seedramon's being salty because he's under the water, I guess.
Haha,
And
haha.
the
It is
Chosen
the
are riding.
ocean.
The Chosen are riding on Waymon, and Taichi punches Waymon because he's punching the ground.
I had
And
to find that too.
He only reacts in the English version. He goes, "Oh, ow." But in the Japanese version, I guess his skin's too thick.
Which would make sense.
So Waymon's a bit like I think they've made him a bit more of a comedic character in the English version.
Haven't they done that to everybody?
Oh yeah, good point. So Sora says, "Do you remember Waymon? Like, oh, do you remember this thing that happened, comma, Waymon?" And Waymon says, "Of course I remember Waymon. Funny guy." Ha 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 ha. Like, oh, it's a joke.
That was fun.
Oh, I get it. It's a joke.
Whales are hilarious. You ever talked to a whale? They're great.
Have a whale of a time.
Exactly. So yeah, so they get to an island, and Garamon is standing on Waymon and auto sashimis some fish by catching them out of the air. And instead, in English, she sings
The
the
worst song
ever over Matt's harmonica.
Cats land on their feet, but we still need to eat. It's Gatomon's wish for some fresh flying fish, 'cause I'm a kitty, a digi-kitty. Oh, yeah.
So painful.
It's like, 'cause I'm a kitty. Yeah.
But the
I
worst
hate you
part,
so much, Gatomon.
like, if the song was just cringy, like, I would take it because so is all of the English. But, like, the voice actor can't sing. The voice actor was so bad at singing, I couldn't. The reason you'd usually do this, the reason you'd usually add in a weird extra song is because you're like, oh man, our voice actor can sing. That's awesome. Let's go. But they wrote a song, the voice actor goes, I can't sing. And they're like, but do it anyway.
Can't they auto-tune or something?
That didn't exist in 1995.
I think it might have.
It didn't.
Also, it was 1999. At this point, it might have been 2000.
Then what I said was still accurate.
But, yeah, so I think this is the only time we actually have a case of a character singing and, like, it's only in the English version. Usually it's in the Japanese version and they make it in the English version, but they still have the character sing, but something different and more relating to them.
Well, because usually the animation shows, like, a singing pose. In this one, she's doing the, like, oh, like ninja,
Yeah.
like, hands together, like preparing, meditating to do something.
And then Palmon tries to also get the sushi, but she ends up not getting like
She does a
ends up
great job.
Yeah, she tries to one up. I think it's more in the English version that she tried to one up her, like Talmon, but
No,
it's not.
I actually think the other way around. In Japanese, she definitely tries to one up her. In English, she says, "We all need to eat. Like the amount of food you got wasn't enough."
Yeah, and then she says, "I'll show you how it's really done," and then she gets squashed by a fish.
Whereas in
But it's not one of
Japanese,
Goemon's fish.
it was straight up like, I can do this better."
But she can't because she's not a cat,
But that said,
a
she did do
kitty.
better. She got a bigger fish, and she might
Yeah,
have
she
got
definitely got a bigger fish.
she might have sacrificed her body to do it. Like, but there was more fish at the end of the day. She did a better job.
But wouldn't it be harder to eat because she just poisoned the fish?
She didn't poison it.
Her attack's called Poison Ivy.
Yeah, but it's got scales. You can't. The poison didn't get in. You can just. Yeah.
Oh, so they descale it.
Yeah. You just. There's a word for that. I'm
Ah.
sure.
So in the Japanese version, Yamato's worried that they can't beat the Dark Masters, and they say, "Oh, can we even do this?" And in the dub, he just says, "Oh, I stopped playing harmonica because it's really depressing." And then he says, "Oh, can we defeat them?" So they add in this extra thing of him saying, "This song that I've been playing all season's really depressing."
I make me sad.
And then Koshiro's like, "Ah, we should try using Draymond Killer," which he gets out his analyzer, he starts looking it up, and it's strong against Dragon Digimon. And this is kept because I guess it's important.
So
And then
you know what
Agumon starts
Draymond
eating
Killer
the fish.
is?
It kills the Digimon that end with Draymon,
I mean, that's not.
Seedramon.
I wasn't asking you. That wasn't the question I'm asking. I wasn't saying what is it. I said, do you know what it is? Which is to say, it's a really terrible way of saying Dragon Slayer, which is
Yep.
much cooler. First of all, second, if you know that this thing has like an advantage, and we had a discussion about this before we recorded, but it's Draymond Killer is not an attack apparently. I thought it was when they were describing it, but no, that's his arms. That's Greymond's arms. Wouldn't you immediately think we should analyze all the other Digimon for who they're strong against if they have
I
it,
would have. Maybe they were worried that they didn't have the time to do it.
as they're sitting on Waymon, letting Gardamon stand there and fish while singing? They were so running out of time. Like they clearly had time.
Well, in the English version, they don't have a lot of time. Like they have lots of time because I think later on when Goemon says that Hangyomon are coming, he says, "Oh, they're 200 miles away from us." But in the original, it's like 200 meters. So I don't know why they changed it to make them further away, but they did. Did you notice that? How they said, "Quick, quick, they're 200 miles away."
That's a
Which
lot.
means we don't use miles here, but I'm assuming it's a long way.
That's like 400. That's more than 400 kilometers.
Yeah, so what's the rush, buddy?
That's a long ass way away.
But it's 200 meters in the original.
Which is which is actually disgustingly short.
Which is just like we've got to move, or we're probably going to get murdered.
Like at 200 meters, Metal Seedramon's already killed you because
Well,
he has a
it's a
big laser
Hanyomon,
beam.
not Metal Seedramon.
But why wouldn't it be Metal Seedramon? Wouldn't he also be chasing?
Yeah, but Goemon says it's just the Hanyomon that are near us.
Yeah,
Because they're seeking, and then once they find it, Metal Seedramon will come.
Okay. So there's a humorous exchange where they're like, "Well, we got to rely on Agumon then," and they turn, and Agumon's eating a fish that's bigger than himself.
Yeah.
He's just
It's like, no, don't eat that.
He's just swallowing it whole like a putz.
It's adorable, though. My mum liked that part because she likes Agumon.
It was legitimately entertaining. So, I'm just like here, you immediately see Gomon like swimming around with his fishes, and like, wouldn't Gomon be really pissed that they're eating his friends?
Well, they're not the colourful, pretty fish. The fishes that like break space and time and stuff.
Maybe, but then Waymon right after that it says that he can talk to the fish, and that's how they find out where the Hangimon are.
Hangomon. We could just call them Divermon.
Divermen. And so he speaks to the fish as well. Wouldn't he be like, that fish you're trying to eat is very upset that you're trying to eat him?
Yeah, he doesn't want to be eaten for some reason. I don't know why.
Like, why wouldn't he even think about it? So anyway, as a result, they all piss off.
Yeah, they try and make more distance between them. And then Hangyomon's asking Metal Seedramon in the original version what we should do, and then Metal Seedramon says, "Oh, there's no rush because I control the entire ocean. We're all good." This is changed to the Divermon making some jokes about how there's a Divermon called Jim, And then Seijumon is basically being really sure of himself and is like bragging about how he'll take the Digidestined. And then he's like, no, I hope my hair looks good and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that they added that in. I'm so happy.
Yeah, obviously it was plot necessary. The
Yeah,
Japanese
obviously
never
his
would
hair
have
is important.
covered that important part of his complex character. They dive, basically. They go into Waymon and they dive. And from the place that they're in, I'm pretty sure they're inside Waymon's head
I thought that was in his stomach.
because it's flat at the bottom and then rounded out at the top. The sense I get is that if you like took his skull, it would just be completely hollow and they're inside it.
Maybe, I don't know. I always thought they were in his stomach.
Because at least the way that the digital world works, I could believe that he does not need a brain if you just wrote code on the inside really small. I could believe that. Because there's no reason for them to be in his stomach because it's flat and like the shape of it would be different. Also, his stomach would be full of liquid. And also, like, why would connecting wires to the top of it do anything in the stomach? The head makes much more sense to jack into his like sensory perception. Speaking of which, Izzy jacks into his brain.
Yep, and that helps. Like he gets to see a camera like in a submarine, and then Mimi gets really excited.
And then her ears hurt, and then I find out that Mimi means ears.
Yep,
Which
because Hikari's like, oh, it's just my ears, but she says blah 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 Mimi, and then Mimi stops because she says, huh, Mimi? But this is like that they avoid this obvious Japanese pun to just people saying, "Hey, Mimi, be quiet! You're hurting her ears." But then they say, "No, that's just the being deep in the pressure."
I mean, obviously, the better question is why would her parents be such and call their daughter ears?
Maybe she has really big ears.
Hey, ears, get out of there!
Also, a bit before this, there's a part where just after he starts his Koshiro is connecting to Waymon, everyone's trying to talk to Koshiro, and he's all like, "Oh, I'm focused. Just a moment, please." Just leave me to do this. But in the dub, it's just saying, "Oh, you're too stupid to understand, Tai." I'm like, why are you so mean? Why do they always make the children really mean to each other in the English version? Can't we just all get along?
Because Americans are mean.
So then Waymon's all like, "Oh, I'll change the pressure," and then they add a burp in the English version. Like, why?
Everyone in
And
my
then Kari
audience.
says, "You're excused." All right, so I've noticed that the dub do give the Divamon individual names like Phil and Jim, when the original they're just Hangyomon and Hangyomon and Hangyomon. So they find Waymon and they start attacking him. And so they dive so deep that the Hangyomon's tanks burst.
Which is actually decent because when they talk about their ears, they introduced the idea of water pressure.
Yep.
And this is a solution that is slightly more clever than you'd give the rest of the show credit for, because the show's solutions to everything have been evolve and fight it.
Yep, basically.
So wonderfully, you have a intelligent, we're gonna swim below, and science will win it for us.
Yep, this is basically the science episode, so Bill Nye would be happy. Billmon Nymon.
I feel like evolution of the show would make him very upset.
So Koshiro says, "Oh yeah, Hikari, use your whistle to hear if there's a tunnel nearby." But Metal Seijumon finds them anyway. Waymon surfaces.
Why is that their plan though? Don't whales already have sonar?
Well, maybe not Digiwhales.
Yeah, how would they travel through the deep sea anyway? Also, was his laptop detecting the sound reflections?
I don't actually know.
Also, wait, didn't Waymon say, I think it was in English, it was like, they're like, use that tunnel over there. And he goes, I don't know what you said, but I'm going into this tunnel over here.
Yeah, that's the English version.
That was great. Because he doesn't have any sonar sensors, so apparently, that's why they do the whistle thing. So, it's not like he would be able to use the whistle sound. And are you telling me that Koshiro's laptop is programmed to figure out sonar that a whistle projects? And the whistle would primarily bounce around the inside of the whale. It wouldn't reflect off the rocks outside to any distinct amount. It's crazy.
When they're at the top, Joe says that Goemon will back up Taichi, and then they change this in the dub to him saying, "Oh, I'll stay behind with Goemon." And then Sora's like, "Oh, you're being a coward." And I'm just like, why? But he was gonna stay with Taichi. Why'd they have to make him a coward? And then also, like, I'm not sure about this, but I think that Joe might have called Goemon Bukamon but I'm not entirely sure. But I could be
I
wrong.
didn't notice.
So yeah, Bukamon's the one who evolves into Gomamon.
Right.
But like I could be wrong. I couldn't be
That would
bothered
have
fast,
made no
like,
sense.
I couldn't be bothered rewinding at this point. It's almost like, yep, he may or may not have said that. And then something I noticed is the colors in this episode seem very like vibrant and bright. Like, I don't know, did like their quality like go up a notch?
I think it was just Inside Waymon. Inside Waymon had a lot of weird colors on the inside.
No, but it was still like the colors of the children were just very vibrant, and it was just the animation quality seemed to be better than usual.
Well, I agree that their animation budget has clearly gone up to an extent because you're adding in lots of new environments, you're adding in lots of new stuff. They're using repeat animation less.
Like the running one in the Sub-Zero Ice Punch episode where Yamato's running.
I more mean like having 5 minutes of evolutions.
Oh yeah, they just sort of skipped straight. Like they did the main ones and then like skipped the rest to adult level.
Not Digimon.
Digimon. Scree!
Digimon. Doo!
So then Waymon starts spinning around to do a tidal wave attack. And how is this not making Joe sick? Like, they use every excuse to make him seem like a wuss, but at the English version, they don't add him like, oh, I'm going to be sick or anything. They just...
It didn't even ruin Mimi's hair.
I know, like, is this improvement, I guess, by not making Mimi upset about her hair and Joe worried he's going to be sick everywhere? That rhymed. And then so Agumon warp evolved, and then Metal Seedramon talks about Chrome Digizoid, which we discussed earlier.
Well, Wargreymon attacks him, and he says this weird line, it's like, I'm made of Chrome Digizoid, which is what you're made of, so I can't be harmed. And it's like, okay, well, that's not how that works, but sure.
So then they fight a lot.
Also, is this Zoids now? Zoids was a great show.
Yeah, I liked Zeke. He was cool. So
like
then
Zero.
Zudomon's all like, I'm going to fight these Divamon. And then Metal Seedramon grabs Wargreymon in his mouth, and Braveheart shuts off. And this is where the English dub cuts. This is the end of the episode.
It just ends. There's 2 or 3 minutes left.
Oh, I'd say 4 maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot left of the Japanese episode. I didn't notice the files being much shorter though. Like, where did the rest of the time go?
I think they had a rather big previously on Digimon.
Maybe. Yeah, I skipped past those.
What actually happens is that Waymon rescues him and then gets murdered by Metal Seedramon. Like, his attack goes through his head.
Which actually I took issue with because I'm like, well, his head's hollow. The kids are in there. That should do nothing.
Hurt.
Yeah, it would hurt. It doesn't hurt him. He dies.
Wargreymon spins through Metal Seedramon and just tears him to shreds. Like, this episode is pretty violent.
Not as much as the next one.
Oh jeez. Oh well, they kept the violence in this episode. Next episode with the Metal Seedramon death, they actually kept the graphic of Wargreymon tearing through his entire body.
Jeez.
Like you see slabs of Metal Seedramon
Viscera.
being that's what I was looking for.
Nobody expects viscera.
Like, I thought they would have, maybe put flashes of light or something over it, but you actually see the bullet the attack go through Waymon. You actually see Wargreymon tear through Metal Seedramon. So, I was actually surprised that bit didn't get cut out, but I guess they had so much more editing to do in the next episode, they just said, we'll just leave it in, who cares? Kids will just toughen up. So then, once they win, Waymon fades away, and in both versions, he's like, please, children, save the digital world, save my world. And then Metal Seedramon also fades away, and then the water part of Spiral Mountain returns. And in the dub, they all sass the dead body, like, you're not very strong now, dead body.
You say the water part returns, but it actually disintegrates.
No, it goes back to where it's meant to be. Like, it's obviously not meant to be up that mountain.
Yeah, but it disappears, and there's a void in the mountain, which I don't understand. But then you see the kids, who were just standing by a regular body of water, and it all disappears too, also leaving void. It doesn't leave the dirt under the water. It voids everything, which implies that where they're standing isn't anywhere.
Good point.
It's actually really confusing what's going on. Why would, if you remove water, there be nothing left? Because it doesn't make sense.
Because
it's in the script.
It's in the script. So then
That's your
Pinocumon's...
catchphrase.
Yeah. Your one's never forget the monkey, and mine is...
No, you'd never guess the monkey.
Oh, yeah, that one. So yeah, Pinocchio says, better take things into my own hands, and that's where the episode ends.
And then the English one starts, and this is where it starts.
Yeah. So what
So
did you think of this episode as someone who was new to Digimon?
it's really weird because this episode feels like two episodes crammed into one, which is the best example of why half of the rest of the season doesn't need to exist. Like the beginning of the episode, and they're being chased by these divers, and they have this whole kerfuffle under the sea, and they die because of the. They're probably dead actually because of the crush
Well,
of the.
one of them might be. Like, depends if he was able to get to land. And another one looked like he was in pain when he was attacked by Zudomon.
But yeah, like there's this whole thing going on, and that would usually be a whole episode. Then they surface and they have their whole other fight, and it was fine. It was primarily a fighting episode, but at least you kind of discovered some stuff. You found out that the Digimon sometimes have strengths against other ones. You beat up Metal Seedramon, which is progress. You find out what happens if you beat one of them. That a section of Spiral Mansion comes off, which was fine. And then Waymon died. And I'll go into this further at the beginning of the next episode, episode 2. But I'm going to say, my instant reaction was that I care so much more for Waymon than I ever did for Wizardmon.
That's because we know Waymon more.
Exactly, because Waymon didn't come in and say, "Hey kids, I'm your best friend. Did you know that? We've had so much time together." Waymon was introduced, and he was very helpful, and he was very nice. And then he came back and he was helpful again. He saved the kids. We understand. And he didn't just save them by one time jumping in front of a bullet and dying instantly. He saved the kids first by attacking Metal Digimon selflessly, then by being actively helpful in a way that no one else could. He was specifically useful in a completely unique way, and he was interesting. And so it's just there's a lot more gravitas to his death, and I was sitting there going, is he dead? I can't believe that he might be dead.
It also is a pretty, like, it's not like overdone. Like, he jumps in the way, saves Wargreymon, and then just gets attacked. And it's sort of like, it's quick, and I don't think you're really expecting it, because I think you're meant to believe that he swam away, but he stayed to protect them. And it's just sort of like a sudden, very, and we know him. We know he's more than just a plot device. He helps them through the episode. He helps them get to server like ages ago. So we know him, and he's more than a plot device, and that's maybe why his death feels more like a thing.
Yeah, and the show has set him up stronger, which, like, considering what I'm aware of the fan base reaction, is really weird because I think that Waymon's death is just significantly more tragic. And yeah, so we may as well. Is there anything further of my? Yeah, so I think this episode was fine.
So how did this episode compare to what you thought prior to watching?
Okay, so you've shown me what I said. This is gonna be 4 out of 10. I was wrong. This is a 6. It's fine. So it's Into the Whale, and it's just gonna be filler. And here's the thing. That bit where I guess it's gonna be filler is totally correct for the first half of the episode, which if this was in the first 30 episodes of the season, that would be the whole episode and I would have been totally right.
Mm.
Everything I had to say totally applied to the first half. And then, so they got attacked by huge weirdos under the water with scuba gear. Yes. They're crappy minions with scuba gear. They are. They don't have all levels, but there are lots of them. It's Waymon. So there's no fighting Metal Seedramon. Well, that's obviously wrong. But again, everything I had to say
it's the first half
was perfectly accurate to the first half.
I guess you were assuming it was going to be a slower episode than it actually was, and it would only achieve the first bit that it did.
I don't know why I would ever think that Metal Seedramon wouldn't have died in this episode, because we know Puppetmon's in the next one. I'm like, well, that's the progression. You kill one, then go to the next one.
You never know. They could have
yeah. I assumed that they would fail and flee and then run into like the original episode with the Dark Masters is being introduced, where you lose and you go to the next one, then you lose, you go to the next one. But there's not enough time in the season for that, so of course they won. I should have guessed. The formula's there, and I didn't read it right. I did not carry the one. So yeah, I was weirdly close for the first half, and then way wrong for the rest of it.
So, what differences did you notice, and do you think the changes were justified, besides the obvious Japanese pun, which, had to be changed because no one would get?
I mean, the biggest and most obvious difference is that they cut the ending off, and I think that is grossly not justified.
Oh, definitely. Maybe they really wanted a longer previously on Digimon segment.
You know what? It is most likely because no, it's not just because of that, but they probably had to fill time because they cut out so much animation in the next one as well.
Yeah,
And
that makes
I
sense.
think you're starting to see with the shuffling around of that, probably a lot of catch up where they're like, well, we don't have enough time in the next episode. We cut out so much of it. Just grab some of the previous one and stick that on and just even it all out. Because yeah, you're losing 3 or 4 minutes at the end of the episode. And it makes this weird tone at the beginning of the second, where I mean, especially weird because I knew what happened already. But it was like it ends on a cliffhanger of Wargreymon is in Metal Suitron's mouth, and Metal Suitron goes, "Well, you lose." And then in the first 2, 3 minutes of the episode, Metal Suitron dies, and you're like, "Well, that wasn't a cliffhanger. That wasn't a setup for a big episode. He just
Yeah,
instantly gets killed."
I think the English version likes to make cliffhangers. Like they've done
Oh,
this
it
a few
loves it.
times where they'll cut out something just to make a more cliffhangery ending.
But there's a difference between like a slightly more cliffhangery ending because you cut off like 20 seconds of the kids walking, or like you added in some narration that made it sound more intense than it was in the Japanese. In this one, it is cutting it off way early, like in the middle of a fight, and being like, what will happen? And then instead of the cliffhanger having like a long explanation or leading into a new episode because it's just the ending of the last one. It's very quickly resolved, which is not satisfying at all. If I was watching this week to week and I was like waiting for a whole week, like, oh God, what's the conclusion gonna be? And then you get there and in 2 minutes it's over. You're like, well, that was not worth the wait.
I mean, obviously you assume that like the good guys are going to
Oh
win.
yeah, you
I mean,
do,
in
but
Into the Dark Masters, we saw that that wasn't the case, and they lost.
and that's why that's a
But
really good episode actually. But yeah, you can assume that the good guys are gonna win, but you also have to respect the journey. And if they win instantly, and they didn't win instantly in the Japanese because you had a whole thing before it, but you begin the episode, Metal Digimon dies. That's your tone setter for the episode.
episode 43 starts with Mimi and Palmon are making graves for Waymon, Piccolomon, Shumon, and Wizamon, and this is kind of change. The order's changed, like the same Digimon, but the order is changed in the dub. So it goes instead of Waymon, Piccolo, Shumon, Wizamon, it goes Wizamon, Piccolomon, Shumon, Waymon. So in the dub, Waymon seems like the one she's most sad about. She goes, and this one's Waymon, instead of her being more upset about Wizamon, which I actually like because, she knew Waymon more. So I guess the dub did something right. Because of course she'd be more upset with the one who most recently died, and two, she actually like knew and was like friends with. Like Chumon, she wasn't really friends with Picklemon. She was like she knew, but she wasn't like super close with Waymon. Like Waymon helped them a lot,
I
like
didn't even
and
notice the
definitely
order.
died for them. Yeah, like I wrote down the order in both, but yeah, so I guess it makes sense. Like the dub did something right. They changed something that made more sense. Well, it did to me.
So I was impressed in Japanese about how emotional the scene was, where like the kids are sad, and I'm like, they're legitimately sad, and for at least 3 out of 4 of those, they have good reason to be because the things were useful to them or they had experience with them beforehand. Really, Garamon should have been sad about Wizardmon. I would have respected it slightly at least if you cut to Garamon like moving over to specifically the one that was gestured to be Wizardmon and like putting down like a fish head. That would have been funny. That would have
Aww.
been cute. They didn't do that because Garamon doesn't care because no one is telling her that that's her
Hey,
friend.
yeah, that's your friend, man. I mean, I
Um,
guess it's not his actual body.
no, it's not. But neither is Wait. It's nobody's. They're just monuments. Um,
So Sora tries to
but
cheer Mimi up by saying, "Don't worry, they died because they had to protect us. They died for us." But then in the dub, she's just saying, "Oh, they were just downloaded to a different computer." And then
no, they
Talmon
say they're
in
not
the
dead because they went to Starter Village.
do they? I thought they said downloaded to a different
No,
computer.
they say specifically, like, don't worry, they're not dead. They're just off the Starter Village. It's fine.
Ah,
It's something along those lines. They definitely say it's Starter Village.
and then Talmon says, "Oh, they become sacrifices to us." And then in the dub, she says, "Oh, they're just being reconfigured."
Yeah,
Yeah,
to be
which I guess
reborn
is
as
yeah,
eggs.
yeah. That part is reborn, but it seems that in the Japanese version, I think they're more emotional about it and it's more real. If
Because
that
to
makes
them, they're
sense.
dead. Because if they're saying cheer up their sacrifices, if they're still dead, but saying cheer up they're not dead, well, they're not dead anymore. So you've undercut the tension of the scene and been like, don't worry, death isn't really death. But in Japanese, they're like, they're dead. They're gone. It's really sad.
And then Taichi says, "Oh, we have to fight for them because they died for us." And then But in the English version, Tai just says that she should just get over it because it's war and people are bound to die, so she should just, move on.
They're both similar sentiments, but obviously Tai in the English is a lot more of a dick about it.
Yeah, Taichi has a point. Like we have to fight for them because they did die for us.
Yeah, he's very pragmatic about it, which is good. And in English, it's changed, but it's essentially the same, and it's fine. It's
like I think he has the same sentiment. Like we've got to fight for them, like we have to fight.
It's Matt who, while in the Japanese, he has a legitimate point, whereas like people are grieving, you are being awful, like you're being cold and too calculating about this, and you're being an asshole basically. And Ty's point's so legitimate, but Matt's is too. People's emotions are real. But I think Matt has a really big problem expressing what he's actually trying to say, or at the very least, the writers are really bad at writing him. So that's fine. In Japanese later in this episode, in both languages later in this episode, there's a bit where he tries to express something and he's arguing with Tai because that's what's happening now. He's going to be arguing with Tai all the time. And he's terrible at explaining his point, so it's impossible for you to reason out why he's doing what he's doing. Here, though, in Japanese, it's fine. In English, he totally undermines himself. You've just established the Digimon are not dead, so there's no reason to mourn whatsoever. But then he's like, we all have feelings, and then he goes, we all know you're right, Tai. He yells this in the middle of this thing, which is not what you ever say when you're angry at somebody. This person, let's take Matt's perspective. This person is totally invalidating everyone's emotions over your recently deceased friends. And you're telling them, I'm angry at you, I know you're right though, but I'm going to be angry anyway. So you're saying you recognize the point of this is he's not meant to be able to recognize the pragmatic element of it. He's not meant to be like, there's a greater good and I can feel feelings later. He's meant to be, and what he does in Japanese, he's like, I'm feeling stuff right now. You can't stop me. This one's like, you're right, but I'm written to be angry at you. I need to argue with you because that's what they told me to do in the script. Just the whole scene in Japanese. The whole scene in Japanese is amazing. The kids are really sad, and you totally get it. And there's so much reason to be sad, and they're talking about sacrifice, and they're talking about war, and they're talking about having time to grieve, and it makes so much sense. And then they're just, in English, they're not dead, and also Tai is totally right. So there's no tension whatsoever. There's no two sides of this argument. Everyone agrees with Tai, even if angry. It's so stupid.
Because you've always got to agree with the leader.
Because yeah, pretty much Tai for president.
So then they're all walking around, and then Koshiro's wondering about the feelings of unity, and I think that's the same in both versions. And Joe and Sora are thinking about that. Everyone needs a rest. We should just have a bit of time to relax because we've been through a lot. But in the dub, Joe was just saying, "Oh, I just know that they're all thinking about how they're going to blame me. That's why everyone's so quiet." I'm like, oh, Joe.
You gotta be like Super Joe here.
Oh,
Gadamon's that's the right digitude.
And then Hikari stops because she hears something, and then Taichi yells at her, and basically this is the same in both versions. But I think Tai is more like, you've got to listen to me. You've got to stick with the others. I think they grab Taichi's character and just amplify it a bit, so it's he's more in the wrong. He's being more of a bully.
He's being pragmatic. He's got a goal, and he's going for it at the expense of all the other kids' feelings, which is a reasonable thing for him to be doing. And his counterpart, which is Matt, it's so weird. Matt seems so cold in the other episodes, but now he's the emotional guy. And he's so bad at expressing it that it's really, really hard to be on his side. When they fight Kiwimon later on, I'll explain this further. But wow, he's so bad at communicating. So you cut to the Dark Masters at this stage, I think?
No, I think you've just cut to Pinocchimon, and he starts moving them around. And
there's definitely a scene before that where... Maybe it is Pinocchio, but he has a thing that he says, which I thought was great.
What, haven't had this much fun since I was being fumigated?
No, in Japanese.
Oh, okay.
No, it's in English. It's the first thing. He's talking to Piedmon, I think, and he's about to leave the tower to go mess with them. And he's super impatient. He's like, they're going so slowly. And Piedmon goes, well, Rome wasn't built in a day.
And that was with Kiwimon.
So Kiwimon goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. And Piedmon goes, yeah, but I was.
Yeah, that's in the English version, and it's when he's in his house and he's waiting for them to walk, and that's when he starts moving up the accelerator, and he says, "I haven't had this much fun since I was being fumigated."
And then Kari has this amazing line. It's like, why are the trees running so fast?
Yep, they had to make. I think like in the Japanese version, it's along the lines of like, "What's happening?" Which I guess is a fair point, but the trees aren't running away from you, woman.
And yeah, then they start disappearing. Like they hop off the track and kind of disappear, and
And
they
then
go up a tree.
Pinocchio starts looking through a toy box, and he pulls out a gun.
He just pulls out a revolver. I'm like, I've got this written in my notes in all caps. There's no way that survives the English one. There's
Which
not
it
a
doesn't.
chance.
There's not even a toy box. They don't even have him looking through a toy box. They just cut that.
I thought they did. I thought they did because he pulls out the suction, the extendable suction cup thing, which
Yeah,
goes
but
on
like,
one's
but
head.
after that, it just clips back to the children. Also, Pinocchio says that he wants to shoot the children to their stomachs. He says, "Oh yes, this will be a right gun for shooting them through the stomach." And I'm like, dude,
Also, he's
dude.
like, these are dum-dum bullets, which I know doesn't sound like much, but doesn't mean they're rubber bullets. That means they're like hollow points, I think, which means they're like the ones that explode inside you.
Yeah, the ones that I don't think are they the ones who don't kill you but just cause you a lot of pain, or is that another one?
I don't know. I just know that I'm pretty sure these ones are illegal. The fact is, there's a lot of guns in this episode. And
Yep.
this is the first. This is just the first of many, I think. The first of at least three. And it's oof. All right. He's just talking about I'm gonna go shoot those kids.
Yep, and then we fight back to the children, and Yamato and Taichi are still fighting, but then one by one they start to disappear. And then it's just TK and Matt in the tree, and Yamato says the enemy could have gotten them, but this is changed in the English version to, "Don't worry, we'll be okay with that, everyone, especially Tai."
I forgot to mention. Puppetmon's voice in Japanese is a child.
Yeah, that's why it's
And
terrifying.
I didn't realize. Like the first time I heard it, I go, I'm not sure I like this. And the more it went on, the more I realized how great it is that he's a child.
This is an actual really horrifying episode.
Yeah, it is. There's so much weird stuff going on, and they really tone it down where he's just kind of got a light voice in English. And this is where I'm going to into the discussion. We mentioned it way earlier about territorialism, where I didn't think it was justified that Puppet Mom would want to take the kids on alone, but like the episode kind of concedes that Puppetmon essentially has the brain of a child and
Yep.
considers the kids to kind of be toys. So it's not his intention to go win, to go kill them. His intention is to go play a game. So it would make sense why he wouldn't want the other two to come with him because he doesn't see it so much as a fight, especially because he's got such an overwhelming advantage through these like we'll get to it, but like these weird like voodoo toys.
Mm.
And so it justifies it in hindsight. I think they should have said something beforehand, but you can at least read into it. I understand why you thought you could do this alone. I understand why you were so confident, because you should be. You would win if you had this advantage. Holy crap, would you win?
We learned this is voodoo, and then Pinocchio says he wants to kill them, and Kiwi says if you kill them, you won't have anyone else to play with. And then Pinocchio says, "Oh, that's true." And then he looks around the children, and he decides that he wants to play with Tekuru because he looks fun. So then Yamato and TK are talking, and TK says, "Don't worry, I'll be okay when I'm on my own." And Yamato's just speechless. Like, I don't think he's not ready to accept that his brother can look after himself by like he wants to be needed. But then in the dub,
TK has a great little speech about he's sick of being supervised. He fights alongside them all. He's held his own. Patamon killed Devimon. Like he's been a great member of the team.
and actually did damage to Myotismon when no one else could.
And he's sick of being treated like a child. And that's really interesting. And I think that this episode of like your bad guy is a child, one who we discover is TK's height and tries to play with him. And looking at that as like a symbol of immaturity, and then TK as someone who's growing as a character, and he has such an interesting ideas, and he deals with this thing so well in this episode that his development's really strong.
Definitely. But so in the dub, Matt seems more okay with him growing up, like which sort of undermines how he's feeling later on in the episode, when he's like, it's definitely made in this episode that Matt's not okay with TK being like maturing and being able to look after himself.
Yeah,
because I think Yamato wants to feel like he's needed, and the only way he feels like in control and needed is when he's looking after his brother.
Yeah, he's really codependent that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that I wouldn't think that a kid's show would go into. Like, it's kind of like a toxic relationship where he's um he's treating him more immaturely so that he feels more mature.
Pinocchimon comes out, like, attacks Matt, rolls him up in some red string, and then gives TK an assault rifle.
Have we gotten to the bit where they teleport around first?
Oh yeah, I think they've already done that at this point.
So we've established these voodoo dolls where if you pick them up on this map, then put them down somewhere else on this map, they'll just teleport there. Or if you flip them upside down and slam them to the ground, they'll slam into the ground. This
Poor
is
Joe.
grossly overpowered. Like, how could you ever lose if you have this power?
See, what I would do is I'd just pick up the dolls and just smash them as hard, like, as put them up as high as possible, and then maybe like throw them out a window, and maybe it only counts if it's on the map. But like, I'd get up high and smash them, or like I'd get a hammer. Like Pinocchio has a hammer.
Well,
I guess he wants to play with them.
I wrote this down, and I think I said this earlier. Like, I'm so impressed that they kind of justify why he doesn't do that, which is that if you break your toys, you won't get more, and these are his toys, so they're like he wants them to do fine, so he could instantly win. And if there was any other bad guy, I'd be yelling at them, "Why aren't you just winning?" But his motivation is to play a game, and he can't do that if they're dead.
Yeah.
However, better question: what if you never put them back down on the map? Because we've established if you pick them up, they instantly disappear. What happens if you don't put them back down?
Well,
are they just gone forever?
Well, no. TK grabs them later on, and he's able to take them away and not, do any damage. So maybe it only counts if they're on the map, and if they're not on the map, you can't do anything with them.
Maybe. It's very confusing.
Yeah. I'd like to see it explained more, but I guess they only had, the 23 minutes to explain the
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's not amazingly important. So yeah, they get teleported around. Matt and TK are left alone, and Papamon shows up. And yeah, he does that thing. He wraps up Matt, and then we find out Papamon's essentially TK's height. And then he gives TK an Uzi.
Yeah, it's like, here, assault rifle, yours now. But it's cut in the English version for obvious reasons, which is, this is a gun.
In the English, it's like, we're going to play a game. Here's a gun. If you lose the game, you die. Whereas
it's basically the same in the English version. It's like, we're going to play a game of war, and then I'm going to destroy you.
But in English, he's like, come with me to play, or I'll kill your brother, which is fairly different. I don't remember him threatening Matt so much in the Japanese.
I think it's because he doesn't really care about Matt. He just wants to play with Tekeru and then probably kill him.
I think it's because in Japanese he has a gun of his own. It's like, well, just come with me or I'll shoot you.
And so then, like, they start playing hide and seek. So Tekeru is hiding, and we see Blossomon and Mushmon, and who give him away, and then he's magically not there, and then Puppetmon shoots both of them with a gun, and then in the dub they're just not shown again.
Straight kills them.
He's just saying, "Oh, you lied to me. I'm going to kill you both now," and just shoots them.
And then we cut to Kiwimon seeing all the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
And they say in the digital analyzer that Kiwimon was recently thought to be extinct. Which I get, because it's a Kiwi. What I don't get is because
Kiwis are alive?
No, the Kiwi birds are extinct.
No, have you been to New Zealand, man? Dude,
I thought
you're thinking of a dodo.
Maybe I'm thinking of a dodo.
Kiwis are not extinct. They're thriving in New Zealand. I think they're on the coat of arms.
I was wrong. You're right.
I don't think they're even threatened. I think they might be, like, of least concern or whatever.
What do you mean? Kangaroos are on the Australian coat of arms, and they've been extinct for like 100,000 years.
Yeah, definitely. Kangaroos are extinct, definitely.
Because they all got boxed to death.
Okay, there are 5 recognized species of kiwis, 2 of which are currently vulnerable, 1 of which is endangered, and 1 of which is critically endangered.
I was wrong, okay?
But they're definitely alive. Have you not been to New Zealand?
I was thinking of the dodo. I've been there once. I was in an airport for 20 minutes.
Well, aren't you going there in next month?
Yes, I am.
Pat a kiwi or something.
Will.
Can you bring me back a plush toy of a kiwi?
I will cut one open and drink its delicious kiwi juices.
Kiwis are super not extinct. That's what you've learned today, I guess.
I did. You're right. For whatever reason, I thought that. Anyway, better question: aren't there multiple evolution pathways from babies? How could you ever have an extinct Digimon without killing all of the babies that would?
Dude, that was only in the English version that they said that the Kiwimon was previously thought to be extinct, wasn't it?
No, it was in Japanese.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm wrong.
I think it
But
was in Japanese.
Kiwis are alive. But yeah, so yeah, Kiwimons are not extinct, I guess, because I have one. I had one on my Digimon Pendulum 4.5.
I'm
So
wrong. Anyway, so uh yeah, so they're at to fight. They're fighting Kiwimon, and for whatever reason, Matt's like, we shouldn't kill it. He has this argument with Tai, and it's the worst argument ever because he sounds like an idiot. Matt goes, we can't fight him. We need to find TK, then we can fight him." And intuitively, you go, "Well, the threat's right there. Why wouldn't you fight him and then go? Why would you just leave your friends?" And it's so weird. Then skip forward, like they intercut this with TK's thing, but TK's thing's more interesting. We'll cover that right afterwards. They kill the Kiwimon eventually, Verdramon. It's weirdly underpowered. And then Matt explains we could have asked him where TK's location was. And I go, "Oh, well, that makes sense. If you wanted information from him, you wouldn't want to kill him. It's not like you could have said that."
but isn't that part quite later on? Like
Yeah,
it's
I said we're gonna skip. We're
yeah.
just gonna skip to the
Oh
end of
yeah,
this
yeah,
bit
yeah.
because it's meaningless.
Yeah.
This is your big Digimon fight. This feels so unnecessary.
Well,
and
Kiwimon's
ridiculous.
only at adult level.
Yeah, like it just feels unnecessary, and it was. And Matt's argument here is so stupid because what he says during the fight is, "Let's not do this. Let's go find TK." At the end of the fight, he says we should have captured it for information, but he never said that before. So you can't have the audience being like, "Well, should you fight it or should you capture it?" Because he sounds stupid. He sounds unreasonable. He sounds panicked, which is not what you want your apparent moral compass to be. Also, the Digivices have locators, which I think the show has forgotten.
Oh yeah, I forgot that too.
Matt can just find him because he
Yeah.
has a locator because his guy got to perfect.
And ideally, like all of them have that feature now because all of them have reached perfect level.
Except for TK, but that's fine because they don't necessarily find ones that have become perfect.
Also, like Patamon's strong enough; it doesn't need to evolve further.
Patamon's pretty strong. Um,
Angemon's really strong too.
no,
All of them
Patamon's real
are
strong. Actually, he's kind of de-evolving to Angemon. Patamon's awesome. He's a
Yeah,
football.
Patamon's like uses his boom bubble. He's a cute little jelly bean.
So yeah, like you have a device on you that finds your brother instantly. I don't understand why this is your issue.
I think maybe they stopped working when they came back to the bad digital world because
Why?
it's broken. I don't know. It's in the script.
It
I mean,
isn't-
I'm putting it in the script. I'm forcing it in the script. There you go.
The show
Digital world
should
broken,
say it
Digivice
in
don't
the
work.
script.
No, I'm putting it in the script. I'm rewriting the Digimon script.
So yeah, so Puppetmon and TK are playing like a hide and seek game in which at some stage Puppetmon murders some minions.
Yeah.
And this one's more reasonable because they're not his toys. I don't understand when Vandemon's like, "I'm gonna kill my minions instead of the kids," when I could have just chased the kids myself. This one makes sense because Digimon are replaceable. His toys aren't. So he just shoots them. Awesome. Then Patamon is discovering the mechanisms by which he is controlling the forest and the kids and the voodoo dolls and stuff, while TK, totally independently, is just like talking Puppetmon down. Like Puppetmon shoots at him, shoots at the floor, and TK's like, "You should. What are you doing? You're so you're so boring. This game isn't fun. Do you have any friends?" And he's being such an ass, but like it's so accurate and it's so smart to this thing is overwhelmingly powerful. It can beat your entire group single-handedly. But he's outsmarting it because it's another child. But he's grown up. So he knows what a child thinks like, but he's smarter now. Really well done.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Do you have any friends?" And Papa's like, "I have friends." His response is like, basically, they're just in Canada though. You wouldn't have met them.
Yeah, like oh yeah, I met them on my holiday. But also like the part where Pinocchimon runs out of bullets just before TK starts bullying him. Like he's itching his leg. Like well, it's not really. He's reloading his gun. But it says, "Oh, poison. I'm made out of poison oak."
I didn't actually. Oh yeah, no, that was yeah. So it was Puppetmon shoots at him, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to kill you now because you fell over." Tries to fight, runs out of bullets, and all of that's cut. That's completely cut out, which is amazing
It's
because
good, like 1 minute or something.
in
isn't it?
English the bullet holes are still on the ground. They just don't explain
Yep.
how they got there. And
And
then
they don't even try to edit them out. Like, I thought they would have
So-
tried to edit them out.
what they do is they move. I believe they move the viewpoint over, or they zoom it in and move it over so you can't see the gun. And then when his arm goes down to get bullets, and then they kind of loop the animation of him
Yeah.
rifling through a pocket. He talks about it scratching his butt.
Yeah, because he's made out of poison oak. The poison oak, I think is anyway.
Like why?
So, there's a part where he's just standing, and if you look in his hand, it looks like he should be holding something. Like, it looks like he's got his hand like locked onto something. That's where the gun is. But of course, it's been edited out. But it still looks like he's holding a gun. Like, he has that shape that you make when you're holding a gun, I'm assuming.
There's a wonderful set of images, which is guns replaced with thumbs up,
Yeah.
which is just all
Maybe
these
just giving TK a thumbs up because he's a cool guy.
all these old action movies with like really heavy gun violence, but instead they've edited out the guns and edited them to look like they're giving thumbs up. It's amazing.
Didn't Family Guy do a joke where they were redoing E.T. and replacing everything with walkie-talkies? Like all the guns with walkie-talkies or something?
No, that wasn't a Family Guy thing. That really happened.
Oh, what? I thought that was just a Family Guy joke.
No, that was a real thing.
Oh, I thought they were just taking the...
No, that actually happened. In
Oh, so
one
they
of
were
the
just...
edits, they took the guns out of the agents' hands and they gave them walkie-talkies.
Oh, that's... Wow. All right.
So Puppetmon goes, I made a friend, I'll go get him. And he goes to like a junk shed and just creates another like Puppetmon looking thing with a football for a head. It was great.
And then they go back to the part where we were talking about before with the Yamato and Taichi arguing, and Yamato tries to get Gomamon to evolve, but because I guess he's lost the friendship in his heart, he can't warp evolve. And then so we go back and we see TK running out of the house, and we see a Floramon and a Deramon, and they both say, oh, he must be he's Pinocchio Sama's new toy. And then they say, oh yeah, best not to get involved.
We didn't see anything. Turn
But
around.
in the dub, it was just changed to, that's not how you play charades.
That's such a terrible line.
So then Takeru gets reunited with the others.
Like Matt's like, we need to go find him, which is his I need to look after TK, and TK shows up. He looked after himself. He did a great job. So it's so good.
And he thought for himself, like it was pretty risky, bullying, the bad guy who could probably kill you, but it worked, so that's fine. So then Joe says that Takeru has grown up, and he grew up on his own without anyone realizing it. But then the dub, Joe says that TK pulled off a pretty big escape for a kid. So Yamato walks off during everyone saying, oh, well done, TK, you were able to do something on your own. So TK brought back the dolls, and Mimi's like, oh, I don't look as ugly as that doll, do I? But I'm going to keep it as a souvenir anyway. But in the dub, she's like, oh, I don't wear rags like that. I'm going to take it to the mall. I hate you so much, dub Mimi. So then Puppetmon realizes that no one likes him, and that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, like he feels betrayed, so he starts getting super serial.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to just kill everyone now, I guess. No more playing.
Like, it's such a legit, like, evil villain moment of, like, he had a weakness before, which is that, like, he's a child, but now he's like, I'm a legit villain because of an actual thing that happened. It's such a good, like, story development.
Good story development in Digimon?
Yeah, this episode is, I'm going to say this right now, it's one of the best ones.
What did you think about as someone who was new to Digimon?
As I just said, it's top 3, definitely. It's as an episode's construction, as a piece of writing, I think it's the best. It's the most complete. It's the most... Every piece of it ties together. Thematically, it makes so much sense. I think it's the best written one. I'm not sure it's the best episode for the series, like as like a season, but as a piece of entertainment, it sets up a godlike enemy, one who has near omnipotent power to beat you instantly, then gives you a reason why he doesn't, and then it gives the character who needs development time to beat it without fighting. And it's amazing. The one downside of the episode is Matt, who, while he had legitimate points, is always too stupid to get them across. And then in English, they constantly ruin what is interesting parts of the Japanese. First of all, you started off with your Metal Siegramon, which you built up, and then he dies in 2 minutes. Then you bring out your death bits, and you completely undermine it. It's just all the emotional gravitas gone, and then Matt is having stupid arguments with people. It's awful. The Japanese though is great, and it's probably I would probably say this is my favorite episode.
So better than Flower Power.
Yeah, I think if I were to make a list, this would be number one so far
Cool.
because it's you could almost have this episode if you didn't know what Digimon were and you had the most basic explanation. This episode you could watch by itself. I think you could pretty much have this without
You
any
wouldn't
context, and you
you
would say
wouldn't
this is good.
understand. Like, I don't think you'd understand why Gabumon couldn't warp evolve.
You're
Like,
right.
there
There
was like
are
significance to that. But besides that, yeah, I think you could probably watch this as like actually like I think that the first I mean I was already into Digimon at the time, but the first episode of Digimon I ever saw was one of the Puppetmon episodes because I remember the house. So it might have been this episode, it might have been a later episode, but I do remember being a little bit scared.
yeah,
And
and
so
this villain is so scary, and like the introduction of guns, like of not like all these cannons I have on my arms, like straight up, here's a gun. Like that is really frightening. And a child, a wooden child, is holding it and threatening to murder this other child.
but it was still kind of scary in the English version because, you know,
It
it's
wasn't.
puppet. Well, when I first saw it, I was like, "What is this show? This is like scarier Pokemon." So I liked it more. Like, and then I realized that the Digimon that I had, like, I didn't know. I was like, "Oh, is this Digimon? Oh, this show's Digimon. This is where my pet's from."
So
So
what you're
like, I
saying is
realized,
that the greatest horror show of all time was The Muppets.
no, Digimon's
Because
scary.
puppets are scary, so the Muppets, oh boy.
So how did this episode compare to what you thought an obnoxious
I
synopsis?
was okay, let's see. Waymon rescued them but winds up on the beach with Pokemon. I was wrong. Game like Arena, Mario Party, totally wrong. They fight him, totally wrong, which I'm delighted about. The children lose, wrong. 2 minutes evolutions, wrong. Attacks with only his hammer, wrong. Can't call what any of the Digimon look like. Yeah, whatever. Puppamon is second most interesting. Oh,
As
the
like
that's
as an
not
enemy.
that's not a prediction, but that's still probably true. I think Piedmon will probably be more interesting in the long run. Oh no, no. You know what? I think this is probably the most. I mean, it's the best episode so far. I was wrong, completely wrong. This is for a Digimon episode. This is 10 out of 10. This is the best.
Hey!
Like this one was inspired, and it was so much so that even in the English they were writing better. Like they wasn't perfect, and they ruined a lot of stuff because there was a lot further to fall. But they had a lot more to work with, even when they would cut out a bunch of stuff.
So we've spoken about the changes in this episode. So are there any others that you don't think were justified?
No, I think I really covered most of it. I mean, you cut out so much, and you edited it so weird.
Yeah, it's very edited.
Yeah, I think that we fairly well covered it.
Obviously, the episode that was better is episode 43.
Yeah, much better. I mean, it's the best one.
So the Digimon that were introduced in this episode, we met quite a few, so I'll go through them slowly. What did you think about Divamon?
It's fine. It's really weird seeing a fish with a scuba tank, but whatever. It is what it is.
Kiwimon?
It's what's it called? It's a Cubone. It's just
Yeah.
a Cubone but a bird. Cubird.
Mushroomon?
It's a mushroom. We barely saw it, and I have nothing to say.
Blossommon?
No idea what that is.
It's the ugly one that was with Mushroomon that kind of looks like a flower with vines.
It's a flower with vines. Go on.
Deramon?
It's super adorable. I love its little bow tie.
I've got a figurine of him. I love him so much. He makes me happy. I want to be fashionable like Deramon. What about Floramon?
Also, just a plant, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. So in the Digimon Pendulum 4.0, you could get that. So, but in the 4.5, they changed it to Palmon. So I got the 4.5 because Palmon's seems like a much better version of Floramon.
It does. You're right.
Like Floramon, I think is sometimes like people think of it as like an alternate to Palmon,
It's personalityless.
but we don't see personality from it yet.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Log Horizon. Wait, is that what it's called? Yeah, on the next episode of Log Horizon, Trash Day,
Or Juraimon of the Lost Forest.
and The Ultimate Clash.
Or The Clash of the Ultimates, War Greymon versus Melgarurumon.
Oh,
So
that
the show-
sounds like a terrible episode.
Well, I guess we'll see, and we'll talk about it in an obnoxious
We
synopsis.
will.
The show notes will be linked in the description, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Bye.